Sister Wives fans, prepare yourselves. What if everything you thought you knew about the Brown family's televised therapy sessions was just the tip of a very dark iceberg? For years, we watched Kody, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn sit on those couches, seemingly baring their souls. But what if the real confessions, the truly devastating truths, never made it to air? What if the most explosive accusations, the rawest breakdowns, were deliberately left on the cutting room floor, hidden from millions of viewers? We're talking about alleged footage that could redefine everything you understand about the Brown family, footage that, if it ever surfaced, would shatter Kody Brown's carefully constructed image into a million pieces. There are whispers deep within the shadows of reality TV production, of therapy tapes so volatile, so damning, that TLC couldn't risk letting them see the light of day. Before we dive into this bombshell, hit that like button, subscribe to COCO Gossip, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single exclusive theory about your favorite reality TV families. For seasons, especially as the Brown family fractures grew wider and deeper, therapy became a recurring, almost central theme of Sister Wives. It was presented as a last-ditch effort, a desperate attempt to mend what seemed irrevocably broken. We saw Kody, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn sitting in those uncomfortable chairs, sometimes together, sometimes separately, ostensibly baring their souls to a trained professional. We witnessed moments of frustration, tears, and hesitant confessions. We thought we were seeing the raw, unvarnished truth of a family in crisis. But what if everything we were shown was a carefully curated, heavily edited narrative, a sanitized version of what truly unfolded behind closed doors with cameras still rolling? This isn't just about editing for time, cutting out mundane moments. This is about a much deeper, more insidious act of omission, a deliberate suppression of what could be considered the most damning evidence against the family's patriarch, Kody Brown, and potentially against the network itself. The judgment, according to insider reports and exclusive theories swirling within the reality TV industry, isn't just on the Brown family for their marital woes, but on TLC for what they chose not to air. A reality TV network, by its very nature, controls the narrative. They decide what makes it to the screen, what storyline is pushed, and what is buried forever. And when it comes to therapy sessions, where vulnerability is at its peak and emotions run raw, the power of that editorial control becomes truly immense. Could what we saw have been a carefully polished facade designed to protect the show's future, Kody's image, and the very concept of plural marriage as portrayed by the Brown family? Many believe the answer is a resounding yes. We saw fights, we saw tears, we saw palpable frustration, yes. But there's a crucial difference between a televised disagreement, however intense, and a full-blown psychological unraveling, complete with accusations that cross the line from marital strife into something far more severe, something that could have profound legal and ethical implications. Why would a network invest so heavily in these therapy segments, flying counselors across the country, dedicating significant airtime, if they weren't getting some seriously juicy content? The answer, according to our theories, is that they got too much juicy content. Content that was too damaging, too revealing, too potentially litigious, and too devastating for Kody Brown to ever see broadcast. We, the viewers, were fed a narrative of struggling but trying, of growing pains within a unique family structure. But if these alleged therapy tapes are real, if the insider reports are true, then the struggles were far more dire, the pain far deeper, and the actions of certain individuals far more problematic than we were ever allowed to imagine. This is the alleged betrayal of the audience, the feeling of being manipulated, of not getting the full, unfiltered story of a family whose journey we had invested years in watching. The evidence, according to whispers from within the production crew and unnamed sources who have since moved on from TLC, paints a picture of raw footage that would shock even the most jaded reality TV fan. These are not just vague rumors. These are specific, albeit accounts of devastating confessions that never saw the light of day. Imagine hours upon hours of unedited, unfiltered footage. Not the carefully trimmed 45-minute segment we see on television, but the raw, vulnerable, often chaotic reality of human beings breaking down under immense pressure. Production sources, speaking on condition of anonymity, have allegedly described sessions that ran for 3, 4, even 5 hours, where the pretense dropped, and the true agonizing dynamics of the family came to light in excruciating detail. Even the therapist, allegedly, was caught off guard by the depth of the issues that emerged. What began as an attempt to mend cracks quickly revealed gaping chasms, revealing a level of dysfunction that went far beyond what TLC was prepared to portray as family struggles. The crew members, accustomed to the manufactured drama of reality TV, were reportedly stunned by the sheer intensity and the nature of the confessions. It wasn't just a matter of good TV, it was reportedly a matter of deeply disturbing revelations that crossed a line into dangerous territory for the show's producers and network. What kind of confessions are we talking about? Be prepared, because if these reports are accurate, the true story is far darker than anything we imagined. First, there are alleged confessions of financial mismanagement and alleged deliberate redirection of funds. We've seen Kody's spending habits questioned on the show, the lavish Coyote Pass purchases, the differing sizes of homes for each wife. But sources suggest one wife, in a moment of utter desperation and raw anger, laid bare detailed accounts of how family money was allegedly siphoned, or how one household received preferential treatment while others struggled in silence. These weren't just spousal complaints about unequal allowances. These were alleged claims that could have had serious legal implications, implying a betrayal of trust and an abuse of power on a scale far beyond what we were shown. Imagine a wife recounting how she was allegedly denied funds for necessary repairs or her children's schooling, while simultaneously witnessing exorbitant spending on another wife's property or Kody's own pursuits. This would paint a picture not just of poor financial planning, but of alleged financial coercion and deliberate inequity. Second, there were alleged confessions of sustained emotional abuse and neglect. Not just Kody being distant or oblivious, but active gaslighting, deliberate emotional manipulation, and systematically undermining the wife's self-worth. Imagine a wife on camera describing years of alleged psychological warfare, of feeling like her reality was constantly questioned, her feelings invalidated, her concerns dismissed as overreactions, until she no longer knew what was real or could trust her own perceptions. These are not minor marital spats. These are claims that suggest a pattern of behavior designed to diminish, control, and ultimately break down a person's spirit. The kind of revelations that, if aired, would have fundamentally shifted public opinion of Kody Brown from misunderstood patriarch to something far more sinister. The impact of such alleged confessions on the other wives present, reportedly, was palpable, creating a tense atmosphere where they too might have felt the insidious nature of these behaviors resonating with their own experiences. Third, sources whisper of alleged secret alliances and manipulations within the family dynamic. Was it just Kody and Robyn as a couple, or were there alleged accusations of them actively conspiring against the other wives, not just in their relationship but strategically working to isolate them or control the narrative within the family? It's rumored that one of the wives, in a raw, unfiltered moment of fury and heartbreak, directly accused Kody and Robyn of colluding, not just in their affections, but in their treatment of the other women, not just favoritism, but an active, almost strategic undermining of the other marriages, designed to consolidate power and resources around their own union. This would explain a great deal of the isolation and resentment we saw play out on screen, not as random happenstance, but as the calculated outcome of alleged long-term manipulation. Fourth, and perhaps most heartbreakingly, there were alleged parenting failures and accusations related to Kody's interaction, or lack thereof, with specific children. Claims related to how Kody interacted, or rather failed to interact with specific children, allegedly showing blatant favoritism, emotional neglect, or even active undermining of a child's relationship with their mother. The raw footage, if these whispers are true, contained agonizing confessions from mothers who felt their children were being neglected, overlooked, or even emotionally harmed by Kody's actions or inactions. We're talking about tears and anger not just for themselves, but for their children, accusing Kody of being an absent, disengaged, or worse, a detrimental father figure to some of his own kids, while lavishing attention on others. Such a revelation would not only damage Kody's image as a patriarch, but as a father, striking at the very core of his public identity, These weren't polite disagreements about parenting styles. These were alleged visceral, guttural outpourings of years of suppressed pain and resentment, directly related to the well-being of their children. The intensity of these alleged confessions was reportedly overwhelming, leaving no doubt in the minds of those present about the severity of the situation. The reason these alleged details never aired, according to our theories, is that they transcended reality TV drama and entered the realm of potential PR disaster for Kody and a huge liability for TLC. Imagine the public backlash, the legal implications, the complete erosion of the carefully crafted, big, happy, plural family image. It would have shattered the show's premise and likely led to its immediate cancellation. There are reports of a production team scrambling, lawyers getting involved, and the network realizing they had captured something far too hot to handle, something that threatened not just Kody's reputation but the entire Sister Wives franchise. They allegedly had to choose between showing the brutal, unvarnished truth and protecting their investment, and according to these theories, they chose the latter, sacrificing truth for television. This brings us to the most explosive aspect of these alleged unseen tapes: the betrayal. This is where the alleged tapes get truly explosive. It's one thing to confess your own feelings of sadness or neglect. It's another entirely to level direct, deeply damaging accusations against your husband on camera, knowing that it might be broadcast to millions. This is not about passive complaints, but active, undeniable allegations. When we look back at Christine leaving and Janelle's eventual departure, and even Meri's lingering misery, could these alleged therapy sessions hold the hidden key? Could these unseen accusations be the true catalyst, the real nail in the coffin, long before they ever announced their decisions publicly? Many viewers were left confused by the on-screen explanations for the divorces, feeling that something deeper was missing. If these theories are true, these hidden tapes contain exactly what was missing. Elaborating on the nature of these alleged direct accusations, sources suggest they included: first, accusations of intentional cruelty, not just Kody being oblivious or insensitive, which we saw plenty of, but alleged deliberate acts of cruelty designed to exert power, punish, or simply to see how much emotional pain he could inflict. One alleged accusation, according to our sources, involved a wife claiming Kody had intentionally used their children as pawns or had deliberately inflicted emotional pain as a means of control, knowing it was her most vulnerable spot. This is far beyond typical marital arguments. This describes a pattern of malicious behavior that would be indefensible in any context. Imagine a wife in a moment of absolute despair screaming at Kody about a specific alleged act of calculated emotional torture, the details of which would turn your stomach. Second, there were alleged accusations of abuse of faith and spiritual authority. In a plural marriage, Kody held a certain spiritual authority as the patriarch, often citing religious doctrine to justify his actions. Were there alleged accusations of him weaponizing this, using spiritual principles and the family's deeply held beliefs to justify his personal desires, control his wives, or demand unwavering obedience, even when his actions were clearly causing immense pain? Imagine a wife, broken down in tears, alleging that Kody twisted spiritual principles, using his role as a patriarch and a man of faith to justify actions that were purely selfish, manipulative, or even abusive. This would not only discredit Kody as a spiritual leader, but potentially the entire institution of fundamentalist polygamy as presented by the show, exposing it as a vehicle for one man's alleged control rather than a path to spiritual growth. The implications for the show's carefully constructed image would have been catastrophic. Third, sources speak of alleged accusations of a fundamental betrayal of pledges and vows. Beyond general marital issues, we're talking about alleged accusations that Kody fundamentally violated the core tenets of their plural marriage vows in ways never publicly disclosed. These aren't just "he forgot my anniversary" complaints or "he doesn't prioritize me" sentiments. These are alleged accusations of a fundamental breach of trust, a shattering of the very foundation upon which their plural family was supposedly built, betrayals so profound they couldn't be shown. Perhaps promises related to equality, mutual respect, or the spiritual journey itself were allegedly broken in a way that stripped the wives of their autonomy and dignity. The depth of these alleged betrayals, according to insiders, was shocking. The alleged reactions of other family members during these sessions are also key. If one wife was making such a severe accusation, how did the other wives react? Did it open a floodgate? Did they echo similar sentiments, finding their own voices in the emotional maelstrom? Or was there an immediate attempt to shut it down, either by Kody or by other family members present, knowing the cameras were rolling and the stakes were incredibly high? Imagine the tension in that room, a pressure cooker of raw emotion, with years of unspoken resentment finally bubbling to the surface. It's theorized that these sessions were not just painful but potentially volatile, requiring intervention from the therapist to maintain any semblance of order. This is where the alleged role of Robyn Brown becomes even more scrutinized. How did Robyn react to these accusations against Kody? Did she defend him vehemently, or was she also implicated in some of the alleged betrayals, perhaps as a knowing participant in the alleged manipulation and favoritism? The theories suggest that her reactions were also a critical but unaired component of these therapy tapes, potentially revealing her own complicity or at least her unwavering support of Kody, even in the face of alleged deeply disturbing accusations from the other wives. If Meri or Janelle, perhaps witnessing another wife's breakdown in the torrent of alleged accusations, found the courage to voice their own similar hidden grievances, it could have created a cascade of accusations that the producers simply could not contain, no matter how skilled their editing team. The emotional toll on the wives from these alleged unseen sessions was reportedly immense. These therapy sessions, if these whispers are true, weren't just explosive. They were reportedly emotionally devastating for the wives involved. It was a place where their deepest wounds were exposed, not just to the therapist and the cameras, but potentially to Kody and to each other, forcing them to confront truths they had perhaps buried for decades. This explains the later, visible emotional deterioration we saw on screen, the pervasive sadness, the simmering resentment, the quiet resignation, all of which makes far more sense when viewed through the lens of these alleged, untelevised nuclear confrontations. The visible cracks we saw on screen were merely the surface manifestations of much deeper, more profound ruptures that allegedly occurred during these raw, unaired therapy sessions. The therapy, ironically, instead of healing, seems to have only torn deeper cracks, exposing the rot that had long festered beneath the surface. It was meant to heal, but our theories suggest it only exposed wounds too deep to be mended, confirming what many of the wives had suspected all along about the true nature of their relationships with Kody. This is why these tapes, if they exist and ever surface, are not just gossip. They are, potentially, a historical document of the final, agonizing collapse of a family dynamic that we were only ever allowed to see in highly edited, carefully crafted fragments. They hold the key, allegedly, to understanding the true reasons behind the unraveling of the Brown family, reasons that go far beyond what was ever permissible for public consumption on a family-friendly reality television show. The silence around these alleged tapes, the careful curation of the televised narrative, only amplifies the weight of their potential contents. The more TLC tried to present a certain image, the more suspicious we became about what they might have been trying to hide. The real incident anchor here is that therapy was supposed to heal, to bridge divides, to foster understanding. But according to these insider reports, it only served to tear deeper cracks, exposing the unvarnished, brutal truth that many viewers suspected was lurking beneath the surface. The therapy, instead of offering a path to reconciliation, allegedly became the stage for the definitive and irreparable breakdown of the Brown family. It revealed the true nature of their relationships, the alleged power imbalances, the deeply embedded resentments, and the extent of the emotional damage that had accumulated over decades. The sessions, rather than being cathartic, reportedly pushed the family to a breaking point, making it clear that some relationships were simply beyond repair. It was a desperate gamble, and if our theories are correct, and then the house lost everything. The theory, therefore, is crystal clear. TLC silenced the ugliest truths to keep the show alive. They protected their investment, protected Kody's image as the patriarch, and protected the entire premise of Sister Wives. To air the full, unedited contents of these alleged therapy tapes would have been to dismantle the show's very foundation. It would have meant exposing Kody Brown as potentially emotionally abusive, financially manipulative, and a deeply flawed and divisive figure, rather than the well-meaning but sometimes bumbling plural husband we were often presented with. It would have revealed the extent of Robyn's alleged complicity and the sheer desperation and despair of Meri, Janelle, and Christine in a way that left no room for ambiguity. The network, according to this theory, made a calculated decision: preserve the show, even if it meant sacrificing transparency and withholding the truly shocking depths of the family's dysfunction. They needed Kody to remain a somewhat sympathetic, if often frustrating, figure to keep the audience engaged. They couldn't afford a complete character assassination, however deserved it might have been according to these alleged tapes. The stakes were too high, the profits too great, and the brand too established. So, the alleged devastating confessions, the raw breakdowns, the direct accusations of betrayal and abuse, all of it was meticulously excised, leaving only the palatable, viewer-friendly drama that fit the narrative TLC wanted to tell. And that leaves us with a chilling cliffhanger. If these tapes, these alleged raw therapy sessions, ever leak, will Kody's reputation survive? Will the carefully constructed facade of the Brown family finally crumble entirely, revealing a truth so profound it reshapes everything we thought we knew about sister wives? The thought alone is enough to send shivers down the spine of any longtime viewer. Next, we dive even deeper into the specific, alleged contents of these tapes, exploring the ripple effects on each individual wife, the network's desperate attempts to control the narrative, and the unprecedented implications if even a fraction of this footage were to ever see the light of day. We'll examine how these alleged suppressed truths have shaped the subsequent seasons, the divorces, and the public perception of the entire Brown family. Get ready, because the rabbit hole goes far, far deeper than you could ever imagine. Welcome back to COCO Gossip. In the first part of our deep dive, we laid the groundwork for one of the most explosive theories in Sister Wives history: the existence of unaired, brutally honest therapy tapes that TLC has allegedly kept under lock and key. We theorized that these tapes contain confessions so devastating and accusations so severe that they would have annihilated Kody Brown's reputation and potentially ended the show overnight. Now, we are going deeper. We are going to explore the specific alleged contents of these tapes, breaking down the profound and catastrophic impact these unseen sessions had on each of Kody's first 3 wives, and Robyn's alleged role in the entire sordid affair. We will dissect the network's rumored frantic cover-up and examine the terrifying reality of what would happen if this footage, this digital ghost of the Brown family's true demise, were ever to leak to the public. You think you know why Christine, Janelle, and Meri left? You have no idea. The reasons you saw on TV were the sanitized, network-approved press releases. The real reasons, the raw, ugly, and unforgivable truths, are allegedly locked away on a hard drive waiting for their moment. Let's start with Christine Brown, the first wife to officially break free. Her departure was presented as a slow burn, a culmination of years of feeling unheard and unloved, with the final straw being Kody's refusal to travel for their daughter Isabel's major back surgery. While that incident was undeniably a critical turning point, what if it was only the tip of a much larger, more poisonous iceberg? Reports from production insiders suggest that Christine's breakdown in therapy was not just a moment of sadness or frustration. It was a full-blown emotional exorcism. It was the moment the dam of her carefully constructed, happy-go-lucky persona finally shattered into a million pieces. The alleged raw footage would have shown a Christine we have never seen before. Not just tearful, but filled with a righteous fury, a woman who had finally realized she had been, in her own eyes, utterly and completely betrayed. On these alleged tapes, Christine didn't just say she felt Kody favored Robyn. She reportedly laid out a detailed chronological account of what she perceived as a systematic campaign of neglect and emotional abandonment that began the moment Robyn entered the family. She allegedly provided specific examples, dates, and conversations where Kody had made promises to her and her children, only to break them in favor of Robyn and her kids. The Isabel surgery incident, as it was allegedly recounted in therapy, was not just a disagreement about COVID protocols. It was presented as the ultimate unforgivable act of a father choosing his new family over his biological daughter's excruciating pain. Imagine Christine looking Kody dead in the eye and allegedly screaming, not just crying, that he had allowed their daughter to suffer alone because his comfort and his life with Robyn were more important. She allegedly accused him of not just being an absent father, but of being a cruel one, a man who could look at his child suffering and feel nothing but inconvenience. This wasn't a wife complaining, this was a mother roaring, and it was reportedly terrifying to witness. But it allegedly went deeper. Sources whisper that Christine accused Kody of financial gaslighting. She allegedly detailed how she had contributed financially to the family pot for years, only to feel like she had to beg for scraps for her own household. She reportedly brought up the stark contrast between her living situation and Robyn's, not as a matter of jealousy, but as evidence of a fundamental inequity that proved she and her children were seen as second-class citizens in their own family. The alleged accusation was that Kody and Robyn had created their own private two-person family unit, funded by the collective, while the rest of them were left to fend for themselves. This wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was an accusation of a profound ethical and financial betrayal. And, perhaps most damningly, Christine allegedly declared in a moment of chilling clarity that she no longer believed in the spiritual principle of their marriage. She allegedly told Kody that he had corrupted the faith they once shared, twisting it into a justification for his own selfishness, and that she could no longer, in good conscience, be spiritually sealed to a man she no longer respected as a spiritual leader or as a man. For Christine, the therapy wasn't a place for healing. It was her courtroom. It was where she finally presented her case for the prosecution, laying out years of evidence for why their marriage was not just broken, but had been a lie for a very, very long time. The raw footage of this, if it exists, wouldn't just justify her leaving. It would make viewers wonder how she managed to stay for as long as she did. Now, let's turn to Janelle. On the show, Janelle has always been the logical, pragmatic, and emotionally steady one. Her split from Kody was framed as a gradual drifting apart, a consequence of him disrespecting her adult children and their differing views on life. But the therapy tapes, according to these exclusive theories, would reveal a completely different story. They would show the cracking of Janelle's stoic facade, exposing a wellspring of deep-seated anger and a profound sense of betrayal, not on a romantic level, but on a partnership level. Janelle and Kody's relationship was always framed as more of a business partnership, a meeting of minds. The tapes allegedly reveal her accusing him of being the worst business partner imaginable. Insiders suggest that Janelle, in these unaired sessions, delivered a cold, methodical, and utterly devastating critique of Kody's leadership and financial decisions. She allegedly came with receipts, metaphorically speaking. She reportedly laid out a timeline of poor financial choices, from the rushed Las Vegas exit to the disastrously expensive and undeveloped Coyote Pass property. She allegedly accused him of squandering the family's collective wealth on whims and poor investments, driven by paranoia and a need for control rather than sound logic. This wasn't a wife complaining about a husband's spending. This was a CFO delivering a brutal performance review, accusing the CEO of bankrupting the company through sheer incompetence and ego. She allegedly told him point-blank that he had failed as the head of the family, not just emotionally but financially, leaving her and her children in a precarious and uncertain position. Furthermore, the issue with her sons, Garrison and Gabriel, was allegedly far more explosive in the therapy room than on TV. We saw the arguments about COVID rules, but the tapes allegedly contained Janelle accusing Kody of something far worse: jealousy. She reportedly accused him of being jealous of his own sons, of seeing them as rivals for her respect and for authority within the family. She allegedly claimed that Kody's harsh treatment of them wasn't about protecting the family from a virus, but about punishing them for questioning his authority and for having a strong, independent relationship with their mother. It was allegedly framed as a power play, an attempt by Kody to isolate Janelle from her own children, her greatest source of support. Imagine Janelle, a woman who rarely raises her voice, looking at Kody with cold fury and allegedly saying, "You tried to make me choose between you and my sons. There was never a choice." The alleged silence that followed was reportedly deafening. For Janelle, the therapy sessions confirmed her worst fears. The family partnership was dissolved, the trust was gone, and Kody was no longer a partner, but an obstacle to her and her children's well-being. She didn't leave because she fell out of love. She allegedly left because the business of the Brown family was morally and financially bankrupt, and Kody was the one who had run it into the ground. And then there is Meri. Meri's story is perhaps the most tragic and complex. For years, viewers watched her linger in a loveless marriage, clinging to a sliver of hope that Kody would one day turn back to her. The therapy sessions we saw showed a painful, awkward distance. But the therapy sessions we allegedly didn't see were a landscape of utter emotional devastation. The reports paint a picture of Meri at her absolute most vulnerable post-catfishing scandal, essentially begging for a path back to reconciliation, only to be met with a level of alleged cruelty and finality from Kody that TLC would never dare to air. In these alleged raw sessions, Meri didn't just express sadness. She reportedly engaged in a gut-wrenching plea for forgiveness and a second chance. She allegedly broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably, taking full responsibility for the catfishing incident, but also explaining the crushing loneliness and neglect that had led her there. She was, according to these whispers, bearing the deepest, most wounded parts of her soul, hoping for a shred of compassion from the man she had been with since she was a teenager. And what did she allegedly receive in return? Not just the cold shoulder we saw on TV, but a direct, brutal, and unequivocal rejection. Kody, reportedly no longer playing for the cameras, told her in no uncertain terms that he was repulsed by her, that the trust was not just broken but atomized, and that he would never, under any circumstances, resume a full marital relationship with her. He allegedly used language so harsh, so dismissive, and so personally cutting that it left the entire production crew in stunned silence. One source alleges that Kody told Meri that the catfish hadn't stolen a wife from him, because he hadn't considered her his wife in that way for years. He allegedly told her she was a burden, a reminder of a failure, and that her presence in the family was merely a matter of spiritual obligation, not love, affection, or even friendship. This wasn't just him saying he wasn't in love with her anymore. This was a complete and total emotional annihilation delivered on camera. The alleged reason TLC couldn't air this is because it would have painted Kody not as a conflicted husband, but as an emotional tyrant, a man capable of kicking someone when they are already on the ground with devastating force. It would have made Meri's subsequent years of hanging on look not like hopeful optimism, but like the actions of a trauma-bonded victim, unable to leave a situation of profound emotional abuse. The therapy for Meri wasn't a failure to reconnect. It was allegedly the moment she was handed her own emotional death sentence by Kody, and the network decided that was a truth too dark for their audience to handle. Finally, we must address Robyn's role in all of this. In the televised version of events, Robyn is often portrayed as the peacemaker, the one crying for family unity caught in the crossfire. But the alleged therapy tapes tell a very, very different story. According to insider theories, the raw footage reveals a Robyn who was not a passive bystander but an active participant in the dynamic, one who consistently defended Kody, invalidated the other wives' feelings, and reinforced the toxic power imbalance. She wasn't just the favorite wife, she was allegedly the enforcer. When Christine allegedly unleashed her fury about the neglect of her children, Robyn reportedly didn't offer sympathy. Instead, she allegedly turned the tables, suggesting Christine was being selfish, that she didn't understand the pressures Kody was under, and that she was damaging the family by being so negative. It was a masterclass in alleged gaslighting, captured on film. When Janelle reportedly questioned Kody's financial decisions, Robyn allegedly jumped to his defense, portraying him as a visionary patriarch whose plans were simply too grand for the others to comprehend. She allegedly framed their concerns as a lack of faith, not as legitimate financial worries. In essence, Robyn's alleged role in these sessions was to act as Kody's shield and mouthpiece, creating a 2-against-1 or 2-against-3 dynamic that made it impossible for the other wives to feel heard. But the most damning alleged moment came during one of Meri's breakdowns. As Meri was allegedly pleading her case to Kody, Robyn reportedly interjected, not with comfort but with a statement that revealed everything. She allegedly said something to the effect of, "Well, if you had just been a better sister wife to me and a better wife to him, none of this would have happened." It was a moment of pure, unadulterated blame shifting, placing the onus for the entire family's dysfunction squarely on Meri's shoulders. This one alleged sentence, if it exists on tape, would completely unravel Robyn's carefully crafted image as the empathetic, family-focused wife. It would expose her in the eyes of many as a key architect of the other wives' misery, a woman who didn't just benefit from the family's hierarchy, but actively worked to maintain it. The network couldn't show this because it would make Robyn as much of a villain as Kody, if not more so. It would have destroyed the narrative of Kody and Robyn's true love and recast it as a hostile takeover, and that was a storyline that would have torpedoed the entire franchise. Confronted with this alleged cascade of unairable confessions and accusations, TLC was in an impossible position. This brings us to the network's desperate cover-up. Reality TV production is a high-pressure environment, but sources describe the atmosphere following these specific therapy sessions as nothing short of panic. There was allegedly a moment, a kill switch moment, where producers on set looked at each other with wide eyes, realizing that what they had just captured was not just good TV, it was a potential brand-destroying, legally precarious nightmare. The raw footage was a powder keg. Hushed, frantic calls were reportedly made to network executives, with producers trying to explain that the patriarch of their family-friendly show had just been credibly accused, on camera, of sustained emotional cruelty, financial malfeasance, and profound neglect by multiple wives. This is when the lawyers allegedly got involved. TLC's legal department, upon reviewing the alleged footage or detailed transcripts, would have seen red flags everywhere. Accusations of emotional abuse, financial coercion, and creating a hostile family environment aren't just dramatic, they carry weight. Airing such footage could open the network to potential legal challenges, not to mention a firestorm of public outrage from viewers, advertisers, and family advocacy groups. The risk was simply too great. The decision was allegedly made from the highest levels to bury the most toxic material. The order came down: control the narrative at all costs. So how did they do it? The art of the Frankenbite is a well-known secret in reality TV, where editors splice together parts of different sentences to create entirely new ones. It is theorized that this technique was used extensively on the therapy footage. A wife's furious, multi-minute tirade could be reduced to a single tearful sentence. "I just feel like he doesn't listen to me." Kody's alleged cold, dismissive diatribes could be edited down to a frustrated but seemingly reasonable soundbite like, "I'm just doing the best I can for this family." The context, the raw emotion, the specific damning accusations, all of it was allegedly left on the digital cutting room floor. Furthermore, it's theorized that the network had to engage in damage control by staging yet follow-up scenes. If a therapy session was a complete disaster, they might schedule a new scene a week later, perhaps a stilted conversation over the kitchen counter, where the conflict could be reframed in a softer, more ambiguous light, giving viewers a more palatable, network-approved version of events. And what of the cast and crew who witnessed this? They are all bound by ironclad non-disclosure agreements and NDAs, contracts designed to ensure that the secrets of production stay secret forever. The financial penalties for violating an NDA are often ruinous in the millions of dollars, ensuring that no camera operator or sound guy is going to risk their entire livelihood to leak the truth. This is how the secrets are kept. The tapes, if they exist, are likely stored on a secure server in a network archive, labeled with a nondescript file name, a ticking time bomb of truth that the network prays will never detonate. The legacy of these alleged lies, these suppressed truths, has shaped everything we've seen since. The divorces of Christine, Janelle, and Meri are not isolated events. They are the public aftershocks of a massive, untelevised earthquake that happened in those therapy rooms. The confusion many viewers felt, "Why did it take so long? Why did she finally snap now?" is answered by what we weren't allowed to see. The therapy sessions were not the beginning of the end, they were the end itself. The public announcements were just the obituaries being printed long after the death had occurred. Kody's on-screen spiral in recent seasons, his escalating anger, his victim mentality, his paranoid rants about betrayal and loyalty, makes perfect sense when viewed through this lens. His behavior is not that of a man confused by his wives leaving him. It's the behavior of a man who knows what he said and did was captured on camera. It's the panicked lashing out of a man terrified that his darkest moments could one day be exposed to the world, a man who knows there is evidence of his alleged cruelty sitting in a vault somewhere. He is haunted by the ghosts of conversations past, and that fear manifests as the rage we now see on our screens. Even without the tapes, the public perception has irrevocably shifted. The audience, though not privy to the alleged raw footage, has sensed the missing pieces. Through the cracks in the edited narrative, through the wives' increasingly bold statements and their children's public defiance, the truth has slowly seeped out. Viewers have connected the dots, arriving at a conclusion very close to what the tapes would allegedly confirm, that the fairy tale of the Brown family was a facade, hiding a deeply dysfunctional and, for some, profoundly painful reality. This brings us back to the ultimate terrifying cliffhanger. These tapes are the ultimate sword of Damocles hanging over Kody Brown and TLC. In today's digital age, nothing is ever truly gone. A disgruntled former employee, a hack, a leak during a corporate merger, there are 100 ways this footage could find its way into the public domain. And if it does, it will not just be embarrassing. It will be an extinction-level event for Kody Brown's reputation. It would retroactively reframe every single season of Sister Wives as a lie. It would vindicate Christine, Janelle, and Meri in the most absolute and dramatic way possible. It could spark calls for investigations, not just from the court of public opinion, but perhaps from other, more official bodies. The question is not just whether Kody's reputation would survive. It is whether there would be anything left to salvage at all. The carefully constructed image would be replaced by the raw, unfiltered footage of the man he allegedly is when the cameras are rolling but the editors aren't there to protect him. And that is a truth that, once seen, could never be unseen. What do you think? Are these tapes real? And what would you do if you got your hands on them? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to COCO Gossip, where we will be watching this story closer than anyone. If there's a leak, you'll hear it here first.